Welcome to the top storylines of 2021. I'm Rex Hoggard. He's Ryan Lavner. And this lab is number one. It's shaking up the establishment. It's whatever's happening between the PGA Tour and the rival tour that we know now is going to be backed by Greg Norman as the CEO. It's been put in this context, and this is how I would like to start the conversation, that it's a disruptor tour. That's the way it's being sold. Is that good for golf?
It's good for golf because competition is good for golf. It doesn't matter whether it's golf, or it doesn't matter if it's sports writing. Competition makes you better. And so the PGA Tour, and we've already started to see it with some of these proposals that we're going to see in 2022 and beyond, they're going to start to change the way that they're doing business. Status quo is no longer going to be good enough because there is another alternative, whether it's Greg Norman's Saudi-backed league, whether it's the Premier Golf League. There are other alternatives, whether they're real, whether you're actually going to get top players to sign up for those respective rival tours does not matter. It is the mere specter, the mere opportunity for them to take the jump and leave the PGA Tour was enough for Jay Monahan and company to act. And I think that's the right move. You can have a product that is incredibly successful, which is the PGA Tour, but there is always ways that you can improve it. And so with some of these proposals that we're going to see specifically in the fall, I think it is a good thing for golf. Whether or not it comes to fruition, and this is actually a rival tour, remains to be seen. But I think you're going to see some changes for the better on the PGA Tour side.
And I'm with you. And I will say this, that it has already caused change within the PGA Tour. And change comes slowly, man, when it comes to the PGA Tour. We have seen it. And this is fundamental changes. I spoke with James Hahn at a fall event in Houston, and he's one of the 4 player directors, so he's pretty plugged in. But what they're talking about, and it started with the Player Impact Program, which it's a sneaky way, a creative way of really just offering the top players guaranteed money. Now, it's based on a very, very convoluted formula that no one seems to understand. But now we're inching our way to what some have called a 5 or 6 event fall series that would just be, let's say, the top 40 players. And it would probably be from the FedEx Cup. But we're talking about guaranteed money at these events. You're talking about huge purses being played in the fall. These are all things that have fundamentally been against the PGA Tour mandate. These are all things that the tour has never embraced. As a matter of fact, just the idea of appearance fees actually is kind of what prompted this, because you had so many players going to play European tour events in the Middle East because they were getting these huge appearance fees. And I think where we're at right now is the tour realizes that on some level, to your point, that they have to change, that the product is very, very successful, but it's always been geared towards the membership. And let's be clear, it's a member organization. So what we're talking about here is a dramatic vision shift to something that's more star driven, where you're not worried about number 125 on the FedEx Cup points list anymore. You're worried about 1 through 40 and keeping them happy and keeping them content. Because what we have right now, it feels for the first time really that I can remember, and this probably goes back to the days of Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus when they split from the PGA of America and created the PGA Tour. But this feels like real competition.
Yeah, you're right, Rex. I mean, this is a foundational shift. The very premise of the PGA Tour and golf in general is that it is a meritocracy. You get what you kill. That has been the long-standing premise of the PGA Tour, and that's changing with some of these handouts. That's changing when you're really prioritizing, let's say, the top 25 to 50 players as opposed to the top 125 to the top 150, and those players who are battling for PGA Tour purses, FedEx Cup bonuses, whatever the case may be. I think the point is this: Bryson DeChambeau and Ben Silverman, they are both PGA Tour peers, but they are not equals. They do not bring in the same amount of revenue on the PGA Tour. They do not draw the same amount of fan interest, whatever kind of metric you're using, whether it's TV ratings, social media mentions, whatever, they are not equals. The PGA Tour is finally shifting its mindset to basically categorizing them differently, that Ben Silverman is not like Bryson DeChambeau. I think that's a good thing. And I think that is what all of these rival tours are offering. They don't want to kind of cherry pick those guys who are, 75th to 125 on the FedEx Cup point standings. They want the best. Whether they're actually going to get the best does not matter. They are prioritizing those players. And so those players, and by extension, their agents, are now leveraging PGA Tour to get exactly what they want. They want bonuses. They want guaranteed paydays. They want limited field events where they don't have to kind of scrap out against some of these lower level PGA Tour players. To me, that is a good thing. They should be catering to the stars and not necessarily the entirety of the membership. My question to you, Rex, as we look ahead to 2022, is how viable of an option are these different rival leagues and these breakaway tours? Can Greg Norman's Saudi-backed league actually get up and going in 2022? Can the Premier Golf League get launched under Andy Gardner? I mean, what are you expecting to happen in 2022 when you look into your crystal ball?
I think there's only one rival league, and that's no disrespect to Premier Golf League, because my understanding is they came up with this concept, and what has evolved now into whatever Norman is going to make it into, let's call it the Super Golf League, that they simply just stole the concept of it, this teams.
So is the PGA Tour, apparently. They're kind of cherry picking some of those ideas as well. That's the problem with making it public, is because now the tour can just cherry pick what they like and incorporate it into their own product.
And I've told this anecdote before about when it kind of in 2019, we were in Mexico at the World Golf Championship. And that's when Rory, sort of drew his line in the sand and threw out the line that I want to be on the right side of history. And I remember talking with him about it later that week and saying that it's over now, right? Like, you've sort of put an end to all this nonsense. And he shook his head and he goes, no, there's enormous amounts of money. And when there's that much money involved, there's always hope. And now we fast forward essentially 2 years to where we are now. And I don't think whatever it is Norman is going to do, they're not going to get the players that they want, at least not all of them, and at least not from the start. But they'll get players, because there's too much money involved when you start believing in whatever these offers are going to be from the Super Golf League. And the problem, and again, this is a conversation that I had with James Hahn and some other players who are on the Player Advisory Council, as hard as this is to believe, this is not a battle the tour wants to get into, a long-term bidding war. And it's out of my mind to think I would say that, because the tour is flush with cash right now because of all the new TV
But they
deals.
can't compete with the Saudis when it comes to deep pockets.
They cannot. I mean, because all it is, they'll just add another zero. And suddenly it becomes impossible for you to turn away. No, look, there's going to be players. There's going to be your Rorys who are just going to say, fundamentally, I'm against this. And good for him for taking a stance. I would argue it's easy for him to take that stance because he has gotten paid through what he's earned on the golf course and what he's earned off the golf course. He has the luxury of sitting back and saying, nope, I'm good. There are players who aren't in that position, who are looking at these huge numbers and being like, yeah, I kind of like that idea. Lee Westwood is really the only one up until now who has spoken sort of truth to this as, look, if someone wants to pay me these amounts of money at this stage in my career, I would be foolish to say no. And I would argue there's probably a lot of players in that category. So to answer your question, yes, I think it's very real. And I would be shocked if you and I are sitting at these same laptops a year from now, having these same discussions, that it's not 1, 2, or 3 on the storylines next year as well, because this is going to be around for a while.
Yeah, look, I think big picture, what is happening right now is clearly the PGA Tour's best players and their agents are leveraging the PGA Tour to gain more power, to have more say in what goes on an every week basis on the PGA Tour, to basically get these guaranteed paydays. But to me, the specter of these other breakaway leagues is the fact that this is more of a long-term play and not necessarily an immediate short-term takeover. The Saudis are in it for the long haul, whether that's 5 years, whether that's 10 years, we don't really know. So if they cherry pick, let's call them some of the aging warriors on the PGA Tour, be it Phil Mickelson or Adam Scott or Lee Westwood or Justin Rose, some of those players who are kind of in the same group as over 40 years old, kind of on the back half of their career. If they want to cherry pick those players and take them and put them in some sort of Asian tour setup where they played 10 to 12 times around the globe, you can have them. That's really not going to affect the PGA Tour product all that much. It's when they start making a dent with some of these younger players that I think you would potentially see the PGA Tour react in a more forceful manner. If they can somehow grab Victor Hovland or Colin Morikawa or Matthew Wolff, some of these players who are under 25 and really have their entire careers left ahead of them, that's when I think you're going to see the PGA Tour react. Right now, there really is no need, other than a couple of these tweaks that they're going to be making, to have any sort of freak out moment at PGA Tour headquarters. But you're right. This is a long-term play. This isn't about 2022. This is about 2025 and 2030 and what golf is eventually going to look like. And I think the PGA Tour should be very mindful and make those changes to keep their stars happy.
That is the top storyline from 2021. For the complete list, check out golfchannel.com.